Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this show of Complaint Free Life. And today, with me, I have a special guest, Shreya. Shreya, welcome from Delhi, India.
Thank you.
And I want to introduce Shreya first, and then, of course, talk about the topic of self-care. I'm starting several episodes of self-care in the humanitarian setting, or even not in the humanitarian setting, but in general as human beings, I guess. And what we've learned so far, and what could be done differently in the future if we wanted to. Right. So before we dive into the topic, Shreya, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. It's so lovely. Thank you for this platform and thank you for creating this initiative. I think it's a very valuable one. And having been in the sector and having experienced vicarious trauma and just generally not focusing on self care, I think there is definitely a gap in the sector for this need of someone to guide us in telling us how can we take care of ourselves, because it not only
Yeah.
impacts our personal life, it affects our professional life as well. We can do our work better. So thank you for this. I'm Shreya. I have had over 6 years of experience working in
Mm.
human rights and humanitarian sector,
Mhm.
specifically with UNHCR, UN Women, the Khmer Rouge tribunals, and with ICRC. And so it's been a range of organizations. And I have to say that I've received support from all the four organizations. But at the
Mm.
end, I've realized that there's only so much institutional support that you can
Mm.
receive. Because of lack of resources or lack of time, and there's just so much to do, considering the sector
Mm.
that we're in. So the
Yeah.
responsibility actually, in some ways, lies with us as well to take care of ourselves. And I've now sort of shifted focus. I'm still doing humanitarian related work, but from a government perspective. So it's different now, but I've
Mm.
realized that the timings, the work hours, and the level of intensity and responsibility is the same, if not more, because now
Yeah.
I'm accountable to the government. So it just feels tenfold a different kind of accountability.
Mm.
Accountability that is more reactive accountability, where you have
I
to
see.
respond to the immediate needs. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting, and that's why I think this is a great time you're doing this session, because it's given me
Yay.
time to reflect again on what I should, when I've just started my new job, on how I should do things differently and relearn
Amazing.
some of the things. So yes.
Yeah, so first of all, Shreya, congratulations on this amazing government job. I rarely hear people leaving humanitarian to go for government jobs. So you are one of the rare people that I've met. So that's amazing. And also, like we were talking last time, is that, working for the government that's working with billions of people is just, mind blowing in my head. So that's why it's an amazing opportunity. So coming back to the question of self-care journey, I think what you were saying made me also realize is that oftentimes, even when there's institutional care is available, right, all of this opportunities, maybe even talk to psychologists or other counselors, whoever, but in the end, working on ourselves or taking care of ourselves is our own priority. And I think what I used to make a mistake in my days is that I used to think that it should be done by others. So I used to think that uh, I'm here doing all this work, and in the end of the day, someone else should take care of me. And I think that was my biggest mistake because I thought it's not really my responsibility to take care of. Of course, like physiologically, I would do all the things. I would take shower and, get ready and come and work, and that will be no problem. It's just the mental way of taking care of ourselves in that sense. I didn't really do it well, I find. So let's maybe start from the beginning. So let's imagine that we have all this workload and we're trying to do our best. How did you find your experience of taking care of yourself in the midst of that?
Thank you. I think it's very important, and I'm glad you started with this question because I absolutely resonate with it. I remember feeling this sense that um, the work is so difficult, and because I was working
Mm,
with big organizations, if it was smaller organizations, it would have been that, oh, they don't have the capacity to take care of my take care of my
mm,
health and my physical health and all of that. But these are big organizations. So I
yeah.
felt that they shared this onus of taking care. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I realized that these institutions have their own restraints, and
Mm,
a lot of it is operational restraints. And while taking care of
mm,
their employees is extremely important, and I still stand by that, I think
mhm.
that if we wait for institutions to take care of us, we miss out on taking care of ourselves. So while
Yeah.
we push for a change, we should also ensure that we are doing something for ourselves so that we can push for a change. And because
Yeah.
we can't, if we are not healthy mentally and physically, we cannot bring out an institutional change. So
Yes.
I had this feeling that you're going through, and I know you have had many, many more years of experience than I've had, and at a senior level, and it's been like a range of things that you've done. So I can imagine that what you experienced would have been tougher and more challenging.
Mm,
Um, I think what I felt was this lack of knowledge and information
mm,
um, as to how to do this. So my first
yeah.
feeling was there wasn't really anyone to guide me through this, right? I know I'm
Mm,
not expecting someone to spoon feed and tell me that this is the right path, because I realized when I went into these institutions, everyone had a very different setup of how they take
yeah.
themselves. It is a very personalized routine. There's no like one shoe fits all. So if they say here, go and have for your R&R, go and have a spa day somewhere, that's not going to fit everyone, because someone might have a family and they might just need to take
Yeah.
a day off and be with their kids. So
Yeah.
I spoke to a lot of people and I realized everyone's needs were different.
Yeah.
And that's why it becomes important that you take care of yourself, and the
Yeah.
organizations are understanding enough to give you that space to create your self-care routine. And
Yeah.
for me, at least, I felt like that lack of information was a big problem. Uh,
Mm,
so I tried to get around this by talking to people. And
mm,
initially, it was hard because a lot of people do not want to openly talk about it. They feel that it reflects
yeah.
on their performance. Whereas I really don't think so. I think it improves their performance if they actually talk about this, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people shied away from talking about mental health, having breakdowns, having burnouts. But
Mm,
eventually, after a period of time, when I'd established rapport and trust with my colleagues, I realized that people were more willing and open to share, and I learned a
yeah.
lot from that. It helped me create my
Yeah.
own routine. So,
Yeah. Very
I,
good. I think that's the one thing that sorry if I interrupted you, but I think that's one thing that I we keep coming is that talking more openly about it, openly about our struggles and our ways of coping with things and how are we doing it, right? And how are we doing it not only in terms of doing physical exercises, which obviously are very important, but also what are the things we're doing for our mental health, and how are we really dumping all of the turmoil that's going on within our heads to outside so that we can actually get a relief and rest a bit. So that's why I think for me, what was important to know is that after trying everything, meaning after trying, okay, maybe I should be doing exercises, maybe I should be doing this, I realized that what was missing in all of that was not only a structural change for myself, meaning that I stop my time, my work on time, and I put some boundaries in terms of what task I take over and what task I don't take over, right? Not only in terms of that, but also establishing those routines, like you were saying, routines in terms of how can I reflect on what's going on. In other words, how can I sit with myself, be alone, and see how I'm doing, what's happening, and checking it with myself, and getting all of the, you know, things that are happening in my head, all of this noise in my head, somehow out and put it onto a paper, or, you know, some people speak about to their phones, so whichever way. So I think that's when I realized that I need to do things not only for my physical health, but also for my mental health, so that I'm balanced in that way. Otherwise, I'm going to be this agitated, annoyed person who's walking around and, you know, creating problems for everyone else. Like the way I think about it is like I'm walking around and all this negative smoke coming out of me and affecting everyone else. So that type of, yeah.
I mean, honestly, trauma not transformed is trauma transferred. So you need to transform it in some manner, otherwise you're transferring it onto someone else.
That's a very good way of thinking it. Exactly. I think that's the thing. I think one thing that definitely stayed with me from my experience is that I cannot avoid my way out, meaning that I can't escape things. And no matter which other work I do, my brain obviously comes with me, and all of the things that are happening within me is going to come with me as well. So thinking that in a new job it will be different, better, is not the case, because our brains come along with the new job, right? So that's why I realized that it's important that at some point I need to have my own system within me that allows, or routine, or whichever way we call it, right? Which allows me then take care of myself regularly, no matter what job I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
there has to be some flexibility in the routine, so that it
Yeah.
doesn't stress you out when you feel like,
Yeah.
I did not walk for 1.5 hours today. But okay, if you've done 30 minutes of exercise and you did 30 minutes of something
Yeah.
else, then that's fine. You make up for it over the weekend or something like that. And also have multiple tools in your toolbox. Um,
Mm,
I
yeah.
really think that it's not one solution that can really help you with
Yeah.
self-care. It could be at different points in time. It could be different things, reaching out to a
Yeah.
friend,
Yeah.
even going out for dinner on your own and pampering
Yeah.
yourself, or
Absolutely.
journaling, or
Yeah.
there are multiple things to do. Taking a course, sometimes it's so nice to. I used to do that. I mean, in my time at UNHCR, I was there for 2 years, and I did over 18 courses with UNHCR and other organizations. And I think it was additional. I didn't need to do it, but I just did it because A, it really helped with my work. But B, I felt
Mm,
that it wasn't just the routine of the work, so that intellectual
mm,
aspect of it that was there, where I was pushing myself to learn more and,
yeah.
think of things differently, which I was missing.
Yeah.
That was there. So finding ways to improve yourself, which is
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing we need to be aware of, though, is that, and this is coming now more and more, is that sometimes there is also a danger of overdoing it.
yes,
And what I mean by that is that, you know, sometimes we get so much into learning something, or so much into digging something, and we get so excited about it. And somehow we find something and we use that as a reason why things are not the way they should be. We start explaining everything with one thing.
yes,
And that's what I want to also warn people. I mean, warn in a sense of be careful if you're doing it. For instance, I know that Many of my clients now tell me that, oh, I found this is the problem, and therefore I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. Or,
Yeah.
like we find a childhood issue somewhere, and we're like, okay, now everything is clear why I'm suffering the way I'm suffering. Therefore, I'm no longer going to be cured, right? And therefore something is wrong with me. And I think that's not the right approach in a sense that's useful for you. So therefore, whenever you are learning about yourself, whenever you are improving yourself and you bump into certain question marks that you have from the past, don't get stuck on it.
Absolutely. And I'm a little wary of self-diagnosis as well.
Yeah.
Because you're blinded. You have
Yeah.
multiple blind spots and you think, I've solved it. I remember I don't think I was burnt out, but I felt very
Mm,
overwhelmed and overburned at certain point in time during
mm,
my work and in 2017. And there was just so many cases that I was doing one after the other. And I
mm,
had a holiday in over 9 months, and I would work weekends and I would try to keep pace, and still it felt like it wasn't enough, because obviously
mm,
you have to balance quantity versus quality, but quality still has
yeah.
to remain because you're still doing, um, can't give a shoddy job. You have to still do a good job. So I was always thinking that, okay, now I have to keep pace with the work, but I also have to do a good job. And so
Mm,
I had this girls' trip with my friends, and I had taken 3 weeks off. Office was incredibly nice. They said, absolutely, go for it. Take your time off. Like, they could see, they were happy with my work, but they could see that I needed that break, and they were very supportive. And
mm,
they said, go have fun. I took a trip with my friends for 3 weeks. It was incredible. But the next day I come back, I get that next week, the week I come back, I'm just overwhelmed with work. Forget emails. Emails is just a
mm,
different story altogether. But just work, because I was away for 3 weeks. And at that point in time, I had colleagues covering for me. So when I came
mm,
back, by then they were overwhelmed. They were like, they felt burnt out. So I had to take on. So within a month, the 3 weeks of that self therapy that I had given myself, that just vanished, because I
mm,
didn't really change things much. And I realized that
yeah.
uh, it was a great trip, no regrets.
Mm,
I would do it
mm,
all over again. But I realized that self care is not temporary, it has to be sustained.
yeah,
And
exactly.
there could be different forms. A holiday could be a long term thing. A holiday,
Yeah,
sorry, not a long term thing, but a holiday could be a quick fix thing, maybe. But then you need some long term tools to ensure
yeah,
that, sure, after your holiday, but you'll still be coming back to work, and the situation at work wouldn't have changed. So you need to have this routine of whatever your self care looks like, right? To
yeah.
ensure that you don't feel like whatever quick fix solution you had taken up was gone for waste.
Exactly. Very good point. And this brings me to the next point that I want to discuss, which is in order to set up for us a routine or a structure so that we can rely on whenever we are working and not make it a one-time thing, right? So whenever we establish that, I think one of the things that we often fail to look at is repeating actions that we do. No, I should put it this differently. Repeatedly, we have the same feeling about certain things like frustration, disappointment, or some sort of a feeling that we call negative, right? So we keep having the same feeling over and over again, and we try to treat the symptom with rest, with sleeping more, but somehow we have this feeling of not able to sleep anyway well, or not enough sleep, or whatever it is. So whenever we notice these feelings coming up over and over again, I find that we don't really address it, and that could be one of the easiest way also to take care of ourselves. Now, I'm not, of course, saying that you should go and diagnose for yourself, and obviously that's not the purpose. The purpose is to reflect on those repeated feelings over and over with yourself, right? So we're not even talking like going to a life coach. Of course, you can also go to a life coach or to a psychologist or to different forms of help. But if you wanted to do that yourself, you can also ask yourself, why am I feeling this? Why is this feeling keep coming, right? And once we address those feelings, like within ourselves, then that will immensely improve the quality of our self-care, because we have addressed why are we feeling this way. And that way we could, keep addressing one feeling at a time. And that way also we know what's going on and why are we reacting the way we're reacting, and how this could be fixed. And as soon as we fix it, our self-care will even be much better, because we are taking care of ourselves in the most effective way. And when I say this, maybe I'm sounding like a life coach, and that's true, but I'm honestly telling that this is also how I did even before I became a life coach. So I would just think of, why am I tired all the time? Or why am I frustrated all the time? Right? So what's going on within me, and what can I do myself to change or to fix it, whichever way I think. And every one of us can do that whenever we're journaling, whenever we are reflecting. And this could improve our self-care significantly. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's really important to identify the feelings and reflect on it. To be honest, initially I wasn't able to do that because I used to take interviews I used to do refugee status determination. So there were two kinds of feelings that I was constantly feeling. One was guilt, an overwhelming sense of guilt. I refused to feel these feelings because I was dealing with people who had seen a lot worse. And for
Yeah.
me, at that point in time, and I'm not trying to sound like, oh, I'm this grand humanitarian who has sort of achieved something. Not at all. But it was just this thing that I couldn't seem to push away, right? Because I was passionate about my work. And then logically I knew that um, I shouldn't suppress myself because of the guilt, but I couldn't. I mean, I just couldn't. I felt that um, how can I even sit here, think and identify, spend time identifying these feelings or thinking about my feelings when people I see and I speak with have gone through immense pain and loss, and my life is so much different. So there was this, and then there was also just feelings of tiredness, as you said. Um, I would say a lot of vicarious trauma, because you're always listening to people going through suffering, or you're working with people who are suffering, especially in the humanitarian sector. You don't have to directly deal with people. Sometimes you constantly read reports, right? That could include interviews, that could talk to people who are in the, who are in the country offices and who are dealing with things directly. And you know what space you're in, so you're cognizant of your surroundings. So it could also just be like you're constantly incurring this. That's why during COVID I just refused to open the newspapers, because I said that every day I cannot deal with it. So but unfortunately in the humanitarian sector, you don't have that choice. You can't close your eyes. I'm not going to read about this because it's important for you, right? So there was no break from that. And so constantly this feeling of tiredness, of this depression, this I'm feeling low, but I don't know why I'm feeling low. I cannot identify it. And, I think it's great. I mean, it's good that you're a life coach and you're going to be talking to people about identifying feelings, because I didn't have anyone to guide me about it. So I could, all these feelings were jumbled up. and
Yeah.
I couldn't even separate them from each other, and they would come in
Yeah.
together. And so, because I couldn't separate it logically, I couldn't understand. It wouldn't manifest into a workable, actionable plan where I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to address guilt. This is how I'm going to address fear. This is how I'm going to
Yeah. I
part. And
see.
when I was journaling, I was just journaling emotions out there. I was just saying
Yeah.
today was a bad day because this is that.
Yeah.
Right. But you just have
Yeah.
two books of absolutely someone ranting no one wants to read.
Yes. No, absolutely, Shrey. You make a very good point, and I want to address this because I think this is such a powerful way of looking at it. So, first, about feelings, right? It's totally fine and normal that many of us can't identify what we're feeling
Yeah.
because we're not really aware of it, or we haven't really been educated on it. So it's totally fine. So if that's the case with any of the listeners, what I would suggest is that whenever you are feeling, so you know that something is happening, right? Because of the way that your body is reacting to things. So obviously, some type of vibration is happening in the body. So the best that I suggest you do is just detect where it's happening.
Mhm.
So is it happening in the chest? So you just hold it. Whatever it's happening, you can just hold it and describe it.
Mhm.
So no need to say this is anger or this is guilt, this must be shame or whatever the other feeling that we have, right? So no need to name it, in other words, but just detect it and understand what's going on. And the reason for that is that the way I want to think of it is that all of our emotions and feelings want to tell us a message. And as long as we don't hear them, they will be even intense and more strong. So that's why it's important that we pay attention to them. So that's the only step we can do if we can't do anything else. So that would be a great way to start. So obviously writing and journaling is amazing, and also putting everything out there is amazing. But if we cannot identify or know what to do with the feeling, just hold and give space to it. So that's it. The other thing that you mentioned about the guilt and the tiredness. Now, about the guilt, I know that many of us do this, and I used to do that as well. I used to compare my life to, refugees and say, "Oh, my life is just better. That I cannot complain about anything in life, right? Because I'm fortunate, and this and this. And look at these people who've gone through all of this, and I understand why we do that because we want good things for other people, but." I find it also important that we don't compare ourselves to other people, no matter whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Meaning, even if we are looking at someone and saying how successful their life is, it's not going to serve us well.
Mhm.
Or if we say they are suffering more than us, we want to somehow think that our guilt will help them feel better, which is a wrong idea, right? We can't go through, helping others with our guilt. And that's unfortunate truth. If we were able to help them with our guilt, we would all be sitting around and feeling guilty. But obviously, that's not how things work. So that's why we can, of course, be compassionate, and that's important. And we're human beings. We want to be that way. We want to understand them. But I think that's also another mistake we humanitarians make, is that we think, oh no, our problems should not be problems because look at their problems, right? Again, I mean, it's very wrong to compare different people's problems to each other because they're not comparable. So everyone's perception of what a problem is very different, and that's real, and we need to individually address it ourselves without diminishing it or without making it sound like it's not as important as someone else's. Of course, it's great to get a perspective from other people, right? Sometimes it helps me to say, oh, look at it, when I see this person's struggles, I don't even remember about my whatever issue that I was thinking about, right? That can help a perspective, and that's sometimes nice, but I just don't want, us to be diminishing our whatever we consider important just because we're comparing to someone else. And the other thing is also that I'm noticing more and more is that we can never fix things with guilt. So sometimes we think that if I feel guilty and do all of these things, then everyone around me will be better, or the systems will be better or improved. But as you were also saying, Shreya, in the beginning, is that we can't really change systems if we are constantly feeling guilty or disappointed or frustrated, because we are taking all of this energy to feeling these feelings instead of actually working to change systems, right? So that's why. And the last point that you made about the tiredness and the, feeling low. And so the way that I have observed is the following, is that obviously we have physical tiredness, and that's when we actually feel good about it. We feel like, oh, we've accomplished something. And sometimes even emotional tiredness, we think, yes, we did all of these things, how amazing, right? But then there is the tiredness that we don't really want, which is a more or less repeated tiredness, or a tiredness that paralyzes us almost, right? So the tiredness that just drags us, we like drag ourselves to do things when we don't really want to do things, that type of tiredness. And whenever we're experiencing it, I find that one of the reasons could be is because we haven't really addressed what's going on within us. And whenever we haven't addressed it, we will continue feeling tired, because that's what happened to me as well. That I had 2013, I had this constant tiredness of my life. And at some point I asked myself, why am I tired of, I feel like I'm already tired of feeling tired.
Yes.
So I don't want to be tired anymore. So something has to change, right? So obviously I tried to solve my problems with institutional counseling and with other things that didn't work. So I really need to do that with myself, taking a look at what's going on within me. So if we don't address it, I find that doesn't go away. And unfortunately, it may even go worse. In my case, that was the case. It was worse, and it led to burnout, and I was hospitalized and so many other things. So that's why I don't recommend that. So if we notice that there is this tiredness that we don't really like, we need to address it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, it's hard. I don't. It's really hard. I don't think I have words to be able to express, because I, like you said, I wouldn't. I haven't experienced what you've experienced, so I can imagine that it was not, it was difficult, it was challenging, and it's harder when you love your work, and at
Yeah.
the same time you have to make these choices about, yes, you need to
Mm.
prioritize yourself at times, and recognize, identifying this constant feeling of tiredness. It exists, and the thing is, you just feel that's because you're working hard, but
Mm.
you sort of quantify things based on work. You've worked these many
Mm.
hours. You've
Yeah.
completed these many projects. Oh, I had a really rough 3 months because these are the
Yeah.
projects I accomplished, right? But like for 3 months, you were sustained, like consistently tired. It was the sustained feeling of doing a lot and not recognizing that. So it's hard. It's a
Yeah.
lot. Um, I also feel, and this might be slightly controversial, but I also feel it's important to, while you're identifying your emotions, identify uh, what kind of job you want to do and which will make you happy. I think the
Mm.
humanitarian sector is a very broad sector. You can work
Yeah.
from any aspect, any angle,
Yeah.
any. I mean, now private entities are expanding into the
Yeah.
humanitarian sector. Um, we have brilliant organizations working in the sector itself, and there are smaller NGOs who are doing really
Yeah.
impactful work. Um, and then, of course, there are governments where you can work with, or think tanks. And I think if you're interested in the subject matter, and if you're at a phase in your life where you need to take a step back and realize, okay, at this stage, I cannot directly work with affected population, with
Mm,
millions. I need to be able to take a step back. I still want to remain in the sector. I want to probably study, do pursue academics, or I want to work with
yeah.
a think tank and strategize and
Yeah.
do policy making. I think it's also identifying when to take a step back and prioritizing yourself
Yes.
and when to not. And um, being confident in yourself that yes, jobs are hard to come by. I absolutely know it. I can tell you firsthand, it's not easy. So
Yes.
it's really, really difficult. But at some point in time, you have to recognize that while the work is fabulous, you can do the work from different sectors and you can take on
Mhm.
different kinds of roles and
Yeah.
do what suits you in your personal life at that time. Um,
Yes.
I have met
Absolutely.
I've met some great mentors who took very different decisions once they had families,
Mhm.
or and in fact some of them, um, they had families, they worked in the sector in one place, okay, worked with an organization
Mm,
in
mm.
one family duty station for a good number of years. And then when their children were settled, and were settled in the sense were a little bit more grown up and could take care of themselves, they took on
Yeah.
challenging roles in non-family duty stations. So
Yes.
it's being open to the idea that we do not have to follow a checklist, and we do
Yeah.
not have to go down that one path that's recommended for all. And I feel then self-care becomes easier because you don't put that pressure
Absolutely.
on you, right? That
Yes.
I need to do these things to reach there. Um,
Absolutely. And I think what you're mentioning here is so amazing that take a proactive step, I think is what we're saying, right? So no longer reacting to things the way things are, and you trying to find a solution to it all the time, because we know that if we keep fixing things a lot of the time, at some point we need to address what the core issue is, meaning that fixing things in isolated manners is no longer serve us. So therefore we may need to look at the overall picture and say, okay, I have put my boundaries around this, I've done this and this, but still I'm not really satisfied. Something is not right. Hence the tiredness, hence so many other things, right? So then we can just, like you're saying, is take a step back and look, what is it that I want to do and why I want to do it that way? And that's my unique way of doing it, even if it's against everyone else's way of doing it, which is fine because we all, in the end, are better off relying on our inner wisdom. And if our inner wisdom is saying, no, you want to do it this way, then go for it. And I love the way you're saying is that believe in yourself that you can do it.
yeah.
You know, I love that whenever we trust that we can do anything we want in life, life becomes such a wonderful, I don't know, platform to play on.
Absolutely.
because then we're not limited anymore. We're like, I can do anything I want. Okay, let's go for it. I know it's not going to be easy, but we're not really saying that, easy things are also good things, but just think about, you are meant to be doing all the hard things, overcoming them, and then going for what you want, because we're all capable of doing that. So that's why I love it.
Thank you. I mean,
So yeah,
yes,
tell me.
please go ahead. Go ahead now. No, I was just
I
reacting.
just wanted to, yes, I just want to maybe, tell our listeners the wrapping up points of what we want them to, I don't know, stay with, to reflect on, and what they could think for themselves in terms of self-care. What are your last thoughts, Shreya?
Um, in terms of self-care, I think seeking help and being okay with seeking help, um,
Mm,
whether it's professional help, whether it's personal help, you want to talk to your
yeah,
supervisor you trust, or a colleague you
yeah,
trust, or actually seeking professional help from a therapist or a life coach.
yeah.
I think that's the first step.
Mm,
I did both, and
mm,
I sought both professional and personal help. And I can tell you that it changed the way I conceptualized work and myself.
mm,
And it made me, I now feel that, I have more control over my feelings and my emotions.
mm,
Even if the work is difficult, if the work's challenging, and I'm put in
yeah,
situations where things are difficult, I will be able to take them on.
mm,
I think the other thing is really prioritizing ourselves, and by that I wouldn't
yeah,
mean that physical exercise is extremely important, eating healthy, and doing
yeah,
having a hobby. God, that is
yeah,
one thing. I've learned this from some really good friends because I see they're frustrated and then they just start like drawing something or writing poetry or doing this. And it's really good because they're venting it out in some form or another.
yeah, yeah,
No, it's harder to do in difficult situations, in difficult places where you're cooped up in a compound and it's hard
mm,
to really pursue something. But as I
yeah,
said, the world is now your oyster because everything is virtual. So you can learn something virtually. There are these things that you can do. Um, and when I say self-prioritizing when it comes to self-care, I really feel that at least when it came to me, one thing really helped was reflecting on what I was feeling at that point in time
mhm,
and
yeah,
understanding that. Because
yeah,
6 months back, 6 months in January, I was offered practically my dream job. And I was
mm,
extremely happy to get it because after hundreds and hundreds of rejections, to be given my dream job was was incredible because it was really really like I think self-care becomes harder when you're facing other issues in life and other troubles in life. So,
mm,
they take up a lot of your attention. But at that point in time, I had certain commitments I'd made to my previous employer, and I had to stay on for a significant period of time. And also, I was feeling, because of COVID, I was feeling cooped up, and I felt like at that point in time, I was away from my family for so long, been over 12 months, I'd not seen them. I felt low, and I hadn't recognized that
mm,
I felt low. I was working virtually,
mm,
I hadn't seen my colleagues in a long time. And I
mm,
envisioned the same life in a place which was much, much tougher. And I realized I couldn't do it at that point in time. And I'll say this, since then, I mean, this is the thing. It still remains my dream job. I would still want to do it. And today, if they offered it to me again, I would take it up in a heartbeat. But at that point in time, I realized I wasn't feeling that I could take it.
mm,
And I'm sharing a very personal story here because I feel it's important to realize that not only identify what you're feeling at this point, but also identify and be practical about how things can be in the future. So,
yeah,
self care is not just immediate, it's a long term, forward looking thing. So, when you
right,
plan something for your self care, also, including seeking professional help, you're doing it for the future. You're not just doing it for your present.
yes,
And
absolutely,
I felt that if I had taken up that job and had gone then, I would be so depressed and I would be so much into my shell that I was scared that it would probably make me make me not want to be in this sector anymore, or I would have
mm,
a very drastic reaction. Actually, not want to be
yeah,
in the sector is too drastic. I probably wouldn't have felt that. I think nothing can take me away from the sector. Is just that I would have probably felt like there was just too much for me to deal with.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I took that decision. And what followed was months and months of hardship looking for another job.
Mm,
And I did find one I'm happy with. And and given a choice tomorrow, if I get that, I'll go back there straight again. But all I'm trying to say, I guess, is that recognizing what your life might look like and doing self-care and taking steps, proactive steps, as you mentioned,
yeah.
to ensure that you can really take ownership of your decisions and
Yeah.
be confident that
Absolutely.
you know you're it's a form of self-care, knowing yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So I would say that for me, the biggest is trust yourself
Yes.
and notice what's happening. So self-awareness, like you're saying, right? Know where your boundaries are, meaning what you can and cannot do, and decide for yourself. And also know that, all of these feelings are generated by your own thoughts. So it's not like someone else put those feelings to you. It's you generating your feelings. So it's extremely important to look behind the feelings and say, why are you feeling this way? Even if it's the wrong feeling you identified, doesn't really matter. What matters is pay attention to them. So that's what it matters, right? So that's why take time to pay attention to what's going on within your brain, within your body, so that you are aligned with yourself and not just pushing through and getting things done. Because in the end of the day, it will not work. We've tried it. Shreya, you and I are probably some of the testimonies in this world who've tried it, pushing way through, and it doesn't work. It's not sustainable, and we can testify that it doesn't work. If it did, we would be doing it always, but that obviously it doesn't. And also knowing that we cannot compensate for problems or for injustices in the world by feeling guilty or by feeling constantly frustrated about it, because no amount of guilt is going to solve anything. And if we want to fight for justice, if we want to help people, then we better take care of ourselves so well, so that we are for a long battle rather than a short one and then we deplete ourselves, right? So that's why it's extremely important that we know how to take care of ourselves in the regular manner and not one time thing. Having said this,
I
it's
would just
been
like
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, tell me.
I was just going to say that I would just like to add one last really short point is that
Yeah.
as a community, I feel we have to be less judgmental. Actually, we should try and be as non-judgmental as possible of people who are actually prioritizing themselves and their self-care,
Mm,
and not compare their work to their personal decisions, and not, I mean, there
mm,
really, if they take a decision to prioritize themselves and their self-care routine for a period of time, I don't think that should be a factor, and that should reflect on the good quality of work that they're doing. So
yes, absolutely. And and also I think we're essentially saying is don't project your own inner issues or whatever that you're having with yourself onto others, because I think sometimes I used to do that as well, meaning that if I'm working and I'm not really taking care of myself, but if someone else took a leave, I would be like, how can they dare to do that while I'm working and doing all these things, right? But that's not going to serve anyone, especially myself. So that's why now I learned that that's not a good thing to do anyway. So let's not project those whatever happening within us to other people, because everyone make their own choices. So it's important that we respect those choices as well. Absolutely. Shreya, I know that we are running out of time a lot, but it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and have you here. And I want to wish you a wonderful
thank
time
you.
with the government. And you can tell us all how governments work, because we always in humanitarian world are like, oh, government, and we're very curious. So that's wonderful that you're there.
Yeah.
And we will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this. Great initiative.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.